Ladies, listen up. The world is about to shift under your feet, and I'm not talking about some distant sci-fi future. I'm talking about right now, this year. Um, a seismic change that's barreling toward us like a rocket at full thrust. You can't see it yet, but it's coming, and it's going to hit hard, especially for women like you who've spent decades building lives of grit, wisdom, and purpose. This isn't a drill. This isn't a theory. This is real, and it's going to reshape your finances, your health, your peace of mind. The question isn't if it'll happen, it's whether you're ready to face it head on. So let me ask you straight up. Um, are you prepared to navigate a storm that could upend everything you've worked for? Or are you just hoping it'll pass you by? Drop your answer in the comments below, because this moment right here, right now, is where you decide to take control or let the future run you over. Um, I'm not here to sugarcoat things. The world doesn't slow down for anyone, not even for women who've carried families, communities, and dreams through decades of challenges. You've seen wars, recessions, technological leaps that turned typewriters into relics and landlines into museum pieces. You've adapted before, and you'll adapt again, but this time it's different. The changes coming aren't just about new gadgets or shifting trends. They're about the very systems you rely on. Social Security checks that don't stretch as far as they used to, Medicare costs that creep up like a thief in the night, grocery bills that make you double check your receipt. These aren't random blips. They're part of a massive, deliberate shift, a setup, if you will, that's been quietly engineered while most people, including you, weren't looking. And the kicker? It's aimed right at you, the women who've earned every ounce of stability you've got. So let me ask again, are you ready? Type ready or not ready in the comments and be honest, because the truth is, most women aren't. Let's cut to the chase. The world is accelerating economically, technologically, socially at a pace that makes Moore's Law look like a leisurely stroll. I've seen it firsthand building companies like Tesla and SpaceX, where we don't just adapt to change, we create it. But here's the hard truth. The systems that promise to protect you, Social Security, Medicare, the whole golden years package, are creaking under the weight of their own outdated design. They were built for a world of 3% inflation and 9 to 5 jobs, not for a reality where costs skyrocket faster than your paycheck and AI reshapes entire industries overnight. And the people running these systems, they're not shouting warnings from the rooftops. They're staying quiet, letting the silence lull you into a false sense of security. Why? Because silence buys time. Silence keeps panic at bay until it's too late. But you're not here for illusions. You're here for truth. So let's rip the curtain off. By the end of this year, decisions are coming that will hit every senior, every retiree, every woman who thought her future was secure. No one is immune. Not you, not your neighbor, not the lady down the street who's been pinching pennies since the Carter administration. Picture this. You open your mailbox one morning expecting the usual routine, a Social Security check, a Medicare statement, maybe a coupon for 50 cents off cereal. But instead, you find a notice. Your benefits have shifted, not vanished, but tweaked just enough to throw your budget into chaos. Maybe your Social Security check gets a 2. 5% bump sounds nice, right? But then you see your Medicare Part B premiums have jumped higher, your prescription drugs cost more, and the grocery store wants $10 for a loaf of bread that cost $6 last year. Suddenly, that raise isn't a raise at all. It's a cut disguised as progress, and you're left wondering, how do I pay for my meds? Do I skip the heat this month? Do I cut back on groceries? This isn't hypothetical. This is happening. I've heard stories, real stories, like Margaret, a woman in her 70 seconds who thought she had it all figured out, paid off mortgage, no debt, Social Security as her safety net. Then, boom, Medicare premiums spiked, her prescriptions doubled in cost, and her monthly check barely covered her basics. She told me, with tears in her eyes, I never thought I'd feel this vulnerable at my age. That's what we're up against. That's why I'm talking to woman, not as a billionaire or a futurist, but as someone who believes you deserve better than being blindsided. Now, let's get real about what's at stake. This isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about your dignity. It's about the life you've built through raising kids, holding down jobs, weathering storms that would have broken lesser souls. You didn't just survive, you thrived. You turned houses into homes, paychecks into futures, dreams into realities, and now, when you're supposed to enjoy the fruits of that labor, the system is pulling the rug out. Why? Because it's easier to balance budgets on the backs of seniors than to fix a broken machine. Because it's simpler to raise your costs than to admit the system wasn't built for a world where lifespans stretch to 90 and inflation outruns your savings. But here's where you come in, ladies. You're not just passengers on this ride, you're the ones who can steer the ship. You've got the wisdom, the experience, the sheer tenacity to face this head on. The question is, will you? Drop one word in the comments: courage, fear, hope, doubt. What's driving you right now? Because that word might just wake someone else up. I've spent my life betting on the impossible: electric cars when everyone said gas was king, reusable rockets when NASA laughed at the idea. And every time the doubters said, Elon, you're crazy, it can't be done. But here's the thing: crazy is just another word for vision. And you, ladies, have vision. You've always had it. You saw potential in your kids when they were failing algebra. You saw hope in your communities when times got tough. You saw a future worth fighting for, even when the world told you to sit down and be quiet. So don't sit down now. The change is coming: rising costs, shrinking benefits, a system that's more fragile than it admits are a challenge, sure, but they're also an opportunity for you to take control, to rewrite the rules, to prove that women like you don't just survive change, you shape it. Think about it. Every major shift in history, whether it's technology, society, or economics, starts with people who refuse to accept the status quo. That's you. That's us. Let me paint a picture of what's coming. The systems you rely on are like an old spaceship, patched together with duct tape and promises. Social Security? It's facing shortfalls that the experts have been whispering about for years. Medicare? Costs are climbing faster than a Falcon 9 at liftoff, and the cost of living, food, utilities, housing is outpacing whatever adjustment they throw your way. I've seen projections to 5% increase in Social Security payments sounds like a win. But when your Medicare premiums jump by 5% or more and your grocery bill looks like it's pricing you out of your own kitchen, that math doesn't add up. It's not an accident, it's a design flaw. And the silence around it, that's deliberate. They don't want you to panic. They want you to keep going, keep paying, keep trusting until the moment the news hits and you're left scrambling. But you're not a bystander. You're a builder, dreamer, a woman who's faced harder things than this and come out stronger. So, what do? First, we wake up, we stop assuming the system has our backs, we stop believing that it'll all work out without effort. I didn't get to Mars by hoping for the best. I built the rockets, tested them, failed, and built them again. You've got that same fire in you. You've rebuilt before, after divorces, layoffs, losses. You've reinvented yourself a dozen times over. This is just another mission. Start by asking hard questions. If your Social Security check loses value, what's your backup plan? If Medicare changes mean higher out of pocket costs, how will you adjust? If the system shifts under you, will you be ready to stand firm? Write your answers in the comments. Share your fears, your plans, your resolve, because when women like you speak up, the world listens. And trust me, the world needs to hear you. This is where the rubber meets the road. The changes coming aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're about your ability to buy groceries without wincing, to afford your meds without skipping doses, to live with the dignity you've earned. I've seen what happens when people ignore the warning signs, families forced to make impossible choices, women in their 70 seconds and 80 seconds going back to work, not because they want to, but because they have to. That's not the future you deserve, but it's the future you'll get if you don't act now. I'm not saying it's easy. Change never island. When I started SpaceX, people said I was throwing money into a black hole. When I pushed for electric cars, they said I was betting against history, right? But history isn't written by the doubters, it's written by the doers. And you, ladies, are doers. Here's the deal: the storm is coming, but you're not powerless. You've got the tools, the wisdom, the sheer stubbornness to face it. Think of this moment as your launch pad. Every great mission starts with a single step, a decision to act, to prepare, to refuse to be a victim. I'm not asking you to build a rocket, though honestly, you probably could. I'm asking you to build a plan, start small, grab a notebook, a planner, something to anchor your thoughts, call it your mission control. Every day, write down one thing you can do to steady your ship, check your budget, call your doctor about cheaper meds, talk to a friend about sharing costs. Small steps compound, just like interest in a savings account, and every step you take is a step toward a future you control, not one that controls you. Let me leave you with this. The world is changing faster than ever, faster than when we went from horse carriages to Model Ts, from telegrams to Twitter, but you're not a relic of the past. You're the architects of the future. You've got the experience, the heart, the vision to turn this challenge into an opportunity. The system might be betting on your silence, but I'm betting on your strength. So tell me in the comments, what's the one thing you'll do today to prepare for what's coming? One action, one idea, one spark, because that spark is all it takes to light up the future. Stay with me, ladies. This is just the beginning. We're going to build something extraordinary together. Ladies, we're not just talking about surviving a storm anymore. We're talking about steering the ship, rewriting the rules, and proving that you, yes, you are the force that will shape what comes next. The world is on the cusp of a massive shift, and I'm not here to tell you to brace for impact. I'm here to tell you to grab the controls. You, the women who've built lives out of resilience, who've turned setbacks into comebacks, who've carried the weight of families and dreams through decades of change. You are the key to unlocking a future that doesn't just happen to you, but happens because of you. So let me ask you straight. Are you ready to lead, or are you going to let someone else write your story? Drop your answer in the comments, leader or follower, because the choice you make right now will echo into the years ahead. I've spent my life chasing what others called impossible electric cars when the world was hooked on gas, rockets that land themselves when skeptics said it was a pipe dream. But here's what I've learned. The impossible only stays impossible until someone like you decides it's not. You've done that before. You've raised kids through sleepless nights, balanced budgets when the math didn't add up, found hope in moments that felt hopeless. You've been the backbone of homes, communities, entire generations. And now, with the world shifting under us, Social Security checks shrinking in real value, Medicare costs climbing like a SpaceX rocket at liftoff, grocery prices that feel like they're from another planet, you're not just survivors, you're pioneers. You're the ones who can turn this challenge into a launch pad for something greater. So tell me, what's one moment in your life where you beat the odds? Share it in the comments. Your story might just light a fire under someone else. Let's talk about why you, as women, are uniquely equipped for this moment. You've spent your lives navigating systems that weren't always built for you. You've worked jobs where you had to prove yourself twice as hard, raised families while juggling bills, and found ways to stretch a dollar further than anyone thought possible. That's not just grit, that's genius. It's the kind of problem solving that built Tesla from a sketch on a napkin to a $1 trillion company. It's the kind of tenacity that got us to the edge of Mars, and it's the kind of strength that's going to carry you through the changes coming down the pike. The system might be betting on your complacency, but I'm betting on your brilliance. Think about it. Every time the world threw a curveball, whether it was a recession, a personal loss, or a societal shift, you didn't just dodge it. You hit it out of the park, you adapted, you innovated, you made it work, and that's exactly what you're going to do now. Let's get specific. The changes we're facing aren't abstract. They're real and they're personal. Your Social Security check might get a 2.5% bump, but when your Medicare Part B premiums jump by 5% or more and your prescription drugs cost as much as a car payment, that's not a raise, it's a squeeze. I heard about a woman named Clara in her late 60 seconds who thought she had her retirement locked in. She'd saved, planned, scrimped, but then her Medicare costs spiked, her meds got pricier, and her grocery bill started looking like a mortgage. She told me, I used to feel in control. Now I feel like I'm racing to keep up. That's not just Clara's story. It's happening across the country to women who've earned their rest but are being forced to rethink everything. Does that sound familiar? Drop a yes or no in the comments, because if it's happening to you, it's happening to millions, and your voice can wake them up. Here's the thing, the system isn't going to fix itself. It's like an old car with a busted engine. Sure, it might get you a few more miles, but it's not going to Mars. Social Security was designed for a world where people retired at 65 and lived to 70. Medicare was built when healthcare costs were a fraction of what they are now, but you're living longer, stronger, smarter. You're not just here to collect a check, you're here to redefine what it means to thrive in your golden years. And that starts with recognizing your power. You're not just a number in a budget, you're a force. You've got the wisdom of decades, the creativity to solve problems, the heart to keep going when the world says stop. I've seen it in the women who run our teams at Neuralink, who balance impossible deadlines with impossible grace. I've seen it in the women who write to me on X, sharing stories of rebuilding after life tried to knock them down. You're not just survivors, you're builders. So, what does that mean for you right now? It means you don't wait for permission. You don't wait for the news to spell it out. You don't wait for the system to throw your lifeline. You start building your own. When I started SpaceX, we didn't have a roadmap. We had a vision and a willingness to fail, learn, and try again. You've got that same spark. You've failed and risen before. Maybe it was a job loss, a health scare, a moment when the world felt too heavy, but you're still here. That's not luck, that's you. So let's harness that energy. Start by owning your role as a leader. You're not just navigating this for yourself, you're setting an example for your kids, your grandkids, your community. Every time you make a smart choice, cutting a bill, finding a cheaper med, sharing a tip with a friend, you're not just surviving, you're leading. Drop one word in the comments. What's your biggest strength as a leader? Wisdom, courage, creativity? Let's see it. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture. The changes coming aren't just about your check or your meds. They're about a world that's moving faster than ever. Technology is rewriting the rules. AI is reshaping jobs, economies, even healthcare. Society is shifting, people are living longer, but the systems haven't caught up. And economics? Inflation's eating away at your savings faster than you can say cost of living adjustment. But here's where you shine. Women like you have always been the ones to bridge the gap between what is and what could be. You've turned empty pantries into meals, broken budgets into plans, fear into hope. That's not just resilience, that's innovation. It's the kind of thinking that turned a crazy idea like reusable rockets into a reality, and it's the kind of thinking that's going to turn this challenge into your next victory. Let me share a story. I met a woman named Evelyn, 72, who'd spent her life as a nurse, a mom, a community pillar. When her social security check started losing ground to rising costs, she didn't panic. She got creative. She started a small co-op with her neighbors, sharing groceries, splitting prescriptions, even trading skills to cut costs. She told me, I'm not letting the system decide my future. I'm deciding it. That's the spirit I'm talking about. That's the kind of leadership that changes the game. Evelyn didn't wait for a bailout. She built her own solution. And you can too. Maybe it's starting a group chat with friends to share money saving tips. Maybe it's calling your doctor to negotiate a cheaper generic drug. Maybe it's just sitting down with a cup of coffee and a notebook to map out your next move. Whatever it is, it starts with you. So tell me in the comments, what's one creative idea you've had to stretch a dollar? Because your idea could spark a revolution. Here's where we get bold. The future isn't something that happens to you, it's something you build. I've always believed that the greatest breakthroughs come from the people who refuse to accept the default. When we launched the first Tesla Roadster, people said electric cars were a niche. When we landed a Falcon 9 booster, they said it was a stunt. But we didn't stop at good enough. We pushed for great. And you, ladies, don't settle for good enough either. You've never settled, not when you raised kids on a shoestring, not when you kept families together through tough times, not when you found ways to make life work when the odds were stacked against you. So don't settle now. The system might be content to let you struggle, but you're not here to struggle, you're here to lead. Let's talk about what leadership looks like in this moment. It's not about being loud or flashy, it's about being smart, steady, strategic. It's about looking at the rising costs, $200 more for meds, $50 more for groceries, $100 more for utilities, and saying, I'm not going to let this break me. It's about sitting down with a friend and saying, let's figure this out together. It's about looking at your grandkids and saying, I'm not just fighting for me, I'm fighting for you. That's the kind of leadership that changes the world. I've seen it in the women who run our factories, who code our AI, who keep our missions on track, and I see it in you. So drop a yes in the comments if you're ready to lead, because the world needs you now more than ever. This isn't just about you as an individual, it's about you as part of something bigger. When women like you stand up, the ripple effect is massive. You're not just saving your own budget, you're showing others how to save theirs. You're not just navigating Medicare changes, you're helping your neighbor navigate them too. You're not just preparing for the future, you're building it. I've always believed that the greatest innovations come from communities, not just individuals. That's why we built X, to connect people, to share ideas, to amplify voices. And your voice, ladies, is louder than you think. Every time you share a tip, a story, a spark of hope, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping millions. So let's start that ripple. Drop one sentence in the comments. What's one thing you wish the system would do differently for women like you? Let's make some noise. As we move forward, we're not just going to talk about surviving, we're going to talk about thriving. The next steps are about tools, strategies, and a vision so big it'll make the system look small. You're not just a senior, a retiree, a number on a spreadsheet. You're a force of nature, a woman who's been through fire and come out stronger. The changes coming are real, but so is your power. You've got the wisdom to see through the silence, the courage to act, the heart to lead. So stay with me. We're not just preparing for a storm, we're building a future where women like you call the shots. What's your next move? Drop it in the comments. Let's keep this rocket flying. Ladies, we're not just talking about weathering a storm or leading the charge anymore. We're talking about building a rocket ship to carry you through the chaos and into a future you control. The world is shifting, Social Security checks shrinking in real value, Medicare costs soaring, grocery bills hitting like a punch you didn't see coming, and it's not enough to just see it coming. You've got to act, not tomorrow, not next week, but today. I've spent my life turning crazy ideas into reality: electric cars when everyone said they'd flop, rockets when the experts laughed. And every time the difference between failure and success was one thing: action. Not perfect plans, not endless debates, but bold, decisive moves. You've got that same fire in you, and right now, it's time to light it up. So tell me in the comments, what's one action you're committing to today to take charge of your future? One step, one move, one spark, because that spark is how you launch. Let's get practical. The changes coming aren't abstract, they're as real as the bills on your kitchen table. Your Social Security check might get a 2.5% bump, but when your Medicare premiums climb faster, your prescriptions cost more than your car insurance, and a gallon of milk feels like a luxury, you're not just fighting numbers, you're fighting for your independence, your peace, your right to live on your terms. I've seen what happens when people wait for the system to save them. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. When we built Tesla, we didn't wait for the auto industry to hand us a playbook. We wrote our own. When we launched Starlink, we didn't ask for permission to connect the world, we just did it. And you, ladies, don't need permission to take control of your life. You've got the tools, the wisdom, the sheer stubbornness to make it happen. So let's talk about how you do it. First, you need a system, a mission control for your life. I'm not talking about some fancy app or a 500-page financial plan. I'm talking about something simple, something you can start today, a 31-day action planner. Think of it like the dashboard of a Tesla, clean, focused, built to keep you on track. Every day you write down one thing you can control. Maybe it's calling your doctor to ask about generic meds that cost less. Maybe it's cutting one subscription you don't need. $10 a month adds up to $120 a year. Maybe it's sitting down with a friend to share a grocery run and split the cost. Small moves, big impact. I learned this building SpaceX. Every successful launch started with tiny, deliberate steps, tweaking a design, testing a part, learning from a failure. Your life is no different. Every step you take compounds like a rocket gaining altitude. So drop in the comments, what's one small action you can take today to tighten your budget or boost your peace of mind? Let's see those ideas stack up. Now, let's talk vision. Action without vision is just motion. It gets you moving, but not necessarily anywhere worth going. You need a North Star, a goal so clear it pulls you forward even when the world feels like it's falling apart. When I started SpaceX, the vision wasn't just building rockets, it was making humanity multiplanetary. Crazy? Sure. But it kept us going through bankruptcies, explosions, and doubters who said we'd never get off the ground. Your vision doesn't have to be Mars-sized, but it has to be yours. Maybe it's living debt-free so you can travel to see your grandkids. Maybe it's staying healthy enough to dance at your great niece's wedding. Maybe it's just waking up each morning knowing you're in control, not the system. Whatever it is, write it down, make it real. When I was a kid, I scribble ideas on napkins. Now those napkins are electric cars and starships. Your planner is your napkin. So tell me in the comments, what's your vision for the next year? One sentence, one dream. Let's make it real. Let's talk about the mindset that gets you there. The system wants you to feel small, like you're just a number on a spreadsheet, a retiree who's supposed to nod and accept whatever comes. But you're not small. You're a force. You've raised families on budgets that would make accountants cry. You've turned houses into homes, setbacks into stories of triumph. That's not just survival, that's engineering. It's the kind of problem solving that built Neuralink to connect brains to computers, the kind of creativity that turned a failing car company into Tesla. You've got that in you, and now's the time to use it. Start thinking like an engineer. Break the problem down. Rising Medicare costs, research your options. There are programs, generics, even community clinics that can cut your bills. Shrinking Social Security, look at your expenses like a circuit board, find the weak spots, reroute the power. You don't need a PhD to do this. You just need the will. So drop one word in the comments. What's your mindset right now? Focused, overwhelmed, determined. Let's see where you're at. Here's a story to drive it home. I met a woman named Lorraine, 68, who had spent her life as a teacher, a mom, a volunteer. When her Medicare costs started climbing, she didn't just shrug and say, that's life. She got curious. She started asking questions. Why were her prescriptions so expensive? Could she switch to a generic? Could she negotiate with her pharmacy? She found a program that cut her drug costs by 40%, then shared it with her book club. That one move saved her friends thousands. Lorraine wasn't a CEO or a rocket scientist. She was a woman who refused to accept the default. That's the kind of thinking I'm talking about. It's not about having all the answers, it's about asking the right questions. When we built the Tesla Gigafactory, we didn't know every detail up front. We asked, we tested, we iterated. You can do the same. So tell me, what's one question you're going to ask this week to take control of your finances or health? Drop it in the comments. Your question could spark someone else's solution. Now, let's zoom out. The changes coming aren't just about your wallet, they're about the world you live in. Technology is moving at light speed. AI is rewriting healthcare, jobs, even how we shop. Society is shifting, people are living longer, but the systems haven't caught up. And the economy? It's like a rocket with a shaky booster. Looks fine until it's not. But you're not just along for the ride, you're the pilot. You've navigated change before. Maybe it was learning to use a smartphone. Maybe it was stretching a paycheck through a recession. You've got the skills to do it again. The key is to stay curious, stay active, stay engaged. When we built Starlink, we didn't just connect satellites, we connected people, ideas, possibilities. You can do that too. Start a conversation with a friend about cost saving tricks. Join a community group to share resources. Use platforms like X to learn from others. Every connection you make is a new circuit in your system, a new way to stay strong. So drop in the comments who's one person you're going to talk to this week about preparing for what's coming. Let's build that network. This is where it gets exciting. You're not just reacting to change, you're shaping it. Every action you take, every question you ask, every vision you write down is a brick in the foundation of a future you control. I've always believed that the best way to predict the future is to create it. When we launched the first Falcon 1, it crashed twice, but we didn't stop. We learned, we adjusted, we launched again. Now we're landing rockets on drone ships in the middle of the ocean. You've got that same resilience. You've crashed before, maybe a financial hit, a health scare, a moment when life felt unfair, but you got up, you launched again, and now, with the world shifting, you're not just going to launch, you're going to soar. So tell me, what's one thing you've overcome that makes you believe you can handle this? Share it in the comments. Your story is fuel for someone else's rocket. Let's wrap this up with a challenge. The system might be betting on your silence, but I'm betting on your action. Today, grab that planner or a notebook, a scrap of paper, anything. Write down one thing you're going to do this week to take charge. Maybe it's checking your Medicare plan for cheaper options. Maybe it's cutting $20 from your monthly bills. Maybe it's just sitting down with a cup of tea and dreaming about the life you want a year from now. Whatever it is, make it real, make it yours. And share it in the comments. What's your one action for this week? Because every step you take is a step toward a future where you're not just surviving, you're thriving. Stay with me, ladies. We're not just building a plan, we're building a legacy. Let's keep this mission on course. Ladies, we're not just building a plan or chasing a vision anymore. We're igniting a movement. The world is shifting. Social Security checks losing their punch, Medicare costs climbing like a rogue asteroid, everyday expenses hitting like a meteor shower, and the system's betting you'll stay quiet, that you'll sit back and let the changes roll over you. But I know better. You're not the type to stay silent. You're the women who've raised voices through decades of challenges, who've spoken up when the world tried to hush you, who've turned whispers of doubt into roars of resilience. Right now, it's time to break the silence. It's time to connect, to share, to build a community so strong it shakes the foundations of a system that's counting on your isolation. So let me ask you, are you ready to make some noise, or are you letting the system keep you quiet? Drop your answer in the comments, loud or silent. Because your voice isn't just yours, it's a beacon for every woman watching. I've spent my life connecting dots, whether it's linking satellites with Starlink to bring internet to the farthest corners of the globe, or building X to amplify voices that the world needs to hear. But the real connections, the ones that change everything, don't come from tech. They come from people like you. Women who've turned neighborhoods into families, who've shared recipes and wisdom and strength through every storm. You've done it before. Maybe it was organizing a potluck to stretch a tight budget. Maybe it was rallying your community to help a neighbor in need. That's not just kindness, that's power. And right now, with the world tilting under the weight of rising costs and shrinking promises, that power is your greatest weapon. So tell me in the comments, what's one time you brought people together to solve a problem? Your story could spark a revolution. Let's talk about why community matters now more than ever. The system, Social Security, Medicare, the whole creaky machine wasn't built to keep up with a world where inflation outruns your paycheck and healthcare costs feel like a second mortgage. It's designed to keep you isolated, to make you feel like you're fighting this alone, but you're not. There are millions of women out there, mothers, grandmothers, sisters, friends who are facing the same squeeze. Your Medicare premiums jump by 5%, your prescriptions cost $200 more a month, your grocery bill looks like it's pricing you out of your own kitchen. Sound familiar? It's not just your story, it's theirs too. And when you share that story, when you speak up about your struggles, your solutions, your strength, you're not just helping yourself. You're lighting a path for others. Drop a yes in the comments if you've ever felt alone in this fight. Because the truth is, you're not alone, you never were. Here's where it gets real. The system thrives on silence. When no one talks about the Medicare premium hikes, the Social Security shortfalls, the grocery prices that make you wince, it's easier for those changes to slip through unnoticed. It's like when we first started SpaceX, nobody believed reusable rockets were possible, so they didn't talk about it. But we didn't stay quiet. We shouted our vision from the rooftops, and now we're landing boosters on drone ships in the middle of the ocean. You've got that same power to disrupt. Every time you share a tip, like how you save $50 on meds by switching to a generic, or a worry like how your social security check barely covers your bills, you're breaking the silence. You're building a network. You're creating a force that the system can't ignore. So tell me, what's one thing you've learned about stretching your budget that you could share with another woman? Drop it in the comments. Your tip could save someone's month. Let me share a story. I heard about a woman named Ruth, 74, who'd spent her life as a seamstress, stitching together not just clothes, but communities. When her Medicare costs started eating into her savings, she didn't retreat. She started a group with her church friends, calling it the Silver Savings Squad. They pooled resources, shared bulk grocery buys, even traded skills to cut costs. One woman taught knitting, another offered cooking lessons, another knew how to negotiate with pharmacies. Ruth told me, we're not just saving money, we're saving each other. That's the kind of community I'm talking about. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving together. When we built X, it wasn't just a platform, it was a way to connect ideas, to let voices like yours rise above the noise. You can do that too. Start a group chat, a book club, a coffee meetup. Share one idea, one hack, one hope. So, drop in the comments. What's one way you could connect with another woman this week to share ideas? Let's build that squad. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture. Community isn't just about saving a few bucks, it's about rewriting the narrative. The system wants you to believe you're powerless, that you're just a retiree on a fixed income, that your voice doesn't matter. But I've seen what happens when people come together. When we launched Tesla, it wasn't just about cars, it was about a movement to rethink energy, to challenge an industry that said gas was king. You're a part of a movement too, a movement of women who refuse to be sidelined, who refuse to let rising costs or shrinking benefits define their future. Every time you speak up, you're not just helping yourself, you're showing your daughters, your granddaughters, your neighbors that women don't just accept change, they shape it. So tell me, what's one message you'd want to pass on to the next generation of women? Drop it in the comments. Your words could change someone's life. This is where it gets exciting. Community isn't just about sharing, it's about amplifying. When you talk about your challenges, $100 more for utilities, $50 more for meds, you're not complaining. You're exposing the cracks in the system. And when you share your solutions, cutting a bill, finding a cheaper pharmacy, starting a savings group, you're not just helping one person, you're building a blueprint for millions. I've always believed that the greatest innovations come from collective effort. When we built Neuralink, it wasn't one person, it was a team of brilliant minds working together to connect brains to computers. Your community is your team. Every woman you connect with, every idea you share, every story you tell is a step toward a future where you're not just surviving, you're leading. So drop one word in the comments. What's the one thing you want your community to stand for? Strength, hope, action? Let's define it. Here's the challenge. The system's silence is a strategy, but your voice is a weapon. Start today. Reach out to one person, a friend, a neighbor, a stranger on X. Share one thing you're facing, one thing you're doing about it. Maybe it's how you cut your grocery bill by $20 a week. Maybe it's how you found a Medicare plan that saves you $500 a year. Maybe it's just admitting you're scared but ready to fight. That one connection could spark a chain reaction. When we launched Starlink, one satellite became thousands, connecting millions. Your one conversation could do the same. So, tell me, who's one person you're going to reach out to this week and what will you say? Drop it in the comments. Let's start that chain. As we move forward, we're not just breaking the silence, we're building a legacy. You're not just a woman facing a tough economy. You're a leader in a movement that's going to redefine what it means to thrive in your golden years. The system might be betting on your isolation, but I'm betting on your connection. Stay with me, ladies. We're not just preparing for change, we're creating a future where your voice is the loudest thing in the room. What's your next move? Share it in the comments. Let's keep this movement alive. Ladies, this is at the moment where you don't just face the future, you define it. We're not talking about surviving rising costs, shrinking benefits, or a system that seems to have forgotten you. We're talking about rewriting the script, turning the tables, and proving that women like you, battle-tested, wise, unstoppable, are the ones who will shape what's next. The world is shifting fast. Social security checks that don't keep up with your grocery bills, Medicare premiums climbing like a rocket with no brakes, everyday expenses that feel like they're from another galaxy. But you're not a passenger in this story. You're the author, you're the leader. I've built companies like Tesla and SpaceX by betting on the impossible. And now I'm betting on you women who've turned dreams into realities, who've built lives out of grit and grace. So let me ask you, are you ready to write the next chapter, or are you letting someone else hold the pen? Drop your answer in the comments, author or bystander, because this is your moment to lead. Let's talk about what leadership looks like for you. It's not about standing on a stage or shouting from a rooftop. It's about the quiet, relentless choices you make every day to take charge of your life. When I started SpaceX, leadership wasn't about being the loudest. It was about staying focused when rockets crashed, when investors walked away, when the world said, "We were done. You've done that too." You've kept going through moments that would have broken anyone else, raising kids on a shoestring, stretching paychecks through recessions, finding light in the darkest times. Now, with the system squeezing you $200 more for meds, $50 more for utilities, a social security raise, that's more like a slap. You're not just going to adapt. You're going to redefine what's possible. So tell me in the comments, what's one moment in your life where you led through a crisis? Your story could inspire someone else to step up. Here's the truth. The future isn't written yet, and the system doesn't get to decide how it ends. You do. The change is coming, Medicare costs spiking, Social Security losing ground to inflation, grocery prices that make you double check your math aren't just challenges. They're opportunities to show the world what you're made of. When we built the Tesla Gigafactory, people said it was impossible to produce batteries at scale. We didn't just build it, we redefined the energy industry. You can do the same. Maybe your factory is a budget that stretches further than anyone thought possible. Maybe it's a community group that shares resources to cut costs. Maybe it's a single choice like switching to a cheaper pharmacy that saves you $500 a year. Leadership isn't about size, it's about impact. So drop one word in the comments. What's your definition of leadership, courage, wisdom, action? Let's see it. Let me share a story. Um, I met a woman named Dolores, 76, who spent her life as a librarian, a mom, a quiet force in her community. When her Medicare premiums jumped and her Social Security check started feeling like pocket change, she didn't give up. She started teaching free budgeting workshops at her local library, showing other women how to track expenses, negotiate bills, even grow herbs to cut grocery costs. Dolores didn't have a fancy degree or a corner office. She had a vision and the guts to act on it. She told me, "I'm not just saving money, I'm showing others they can too." That's leadership, that's you. You don't need a title to change the game, you just need the will. So tell me, what's one way you could lead in your community this week? Drop it in the comments. Your idea could start a ripple. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture. The world is moving at warp speed. AI is rewriting healthcare. Economies are shifting like tectonic plates, and the systems you rely on are struggling to keep up. But you're not just a bystander in this new world, you're a pioneer. You've lived through changes most people can't imagine, from typewriters to smartphones, from gas guzzlers to electric cars. You've adapted, innovated, thrived, and now you're not just going to navigate this shift, you're going to shape it. Think about it. Every time you make a smart choice, cutting a bill, sharing a resource, teaching someone else. You're not just helping yourself, you're building a blueprint for the future. When we launched Starlink, it wasn't just about satellites, it was about connecting people to possibilities. You're doing the same. Every action you take is a signal, a beacon, a step toward a world where women like you aren't just surviving, they're leading the way. So, drop in the comments, what's one change you want to see in the world for women like you? Let's make it loud. This is where it gets bold. The system might be betting on your complacency, but I'm betting on your audacity. You're not just a retiree, a senior, a number on a spreadsheet. You're a force of nature, a woman who's faced down life's toughest moments and come out stronger. You've got the power to rewrite the rules, not just for yourself, but for every woman watching. When we built Neuralink, we didn't just aim to connect brains to computers, we aimed to redefine what it means to be human. You're doing something just as big. Every time you say no to a system that tries to limit you, every time you find a way to stretch your budget, every time you lift up another woman, you're redefining what it means to thrive in your golden years. So tell me, what's one rule you're ready to rewrite? Drop it in the comments. Let's tear up the script. Here's your mission. The future is a blank page, and you're holding the pen. Start today. Grab your planner, your mission control, and write down one thing you're going to do to lead. Maybe it's starting a savings group with your neighbors. Maybe it's teaching your grandkids how to budget so they don't face the same squeeze. Maybe it's just looking in the mirror and saying, I've got this. Whatever it is, make it real, make it yours, and share it in the comments. What's your one leadership move for this week? Because every move you make is a step toward a future where you're not just surviving, you're shaping. When I started Tesla, people said electric cars were a fantasy. Now they're the future. You're the future too. You're the women who'll show the world that age isn't a limit, it's a launch pad. Let's end with this. The changes coming are real, but so is your power. You've got the wisdom to see through the system's smoke and mirrors, the courage to act, the heart to lead. I've always believed that the greatest breakthroughs come from those who refuse to accept the default. You're not just women, you're pioneers, architects, visionaries. The system might be betting on your silence, but I'm betting on your roar. So stay with me. We're not just preparing for change, we're creating a future where women like you run the show. Drop one sentence in the comments. What's your vision for the future you're building? Let's make it unstoppable. Your legacy starts now.